Hello, my name is John Alexis Guerra Gomez, and in this demo I'm going to try to demonstrate how to create a simple Node, Express, Sqlite, EJS, a lot of things, application to query a database. We are going to be building something very simple. This is an example that I did in one of my previous classes that we were having a lot of fires in San Francisco. It's a simple application where you can just go and create like a list of all the fires that are happening. So for instance, I can go and say that this is a fire that is from October 26 to 28 and with these other attributes, and then you can see it's creating records in here. You can also delete them, or you can click on one of them to update. So as you can see, it's very basic. If you want to find that specific example, it's going to be on this repository here. Hopefully I will remember to put that in the comment section or the description of the video, so you can start with that. But and as you can see, here is the code of that, and we are just going to do something similar, but starting from scratch. So for this one, we want to be using, or I have the idea of being using the San Francisco bike share data. So recently I found this data on Kaggle, and then I also found that like the nice people from the San Francisco MTA have been sharing this data. So I got here, and then here you can see that the Bay Wheels page has this nice data, so you can come and download the latest data. So for instance, let's go and download the data for August, since August, I guess from August to September, I'm guessing. So we are going to be downloading that. That's like 9 megabytes. When that finishes, then we can unzip the file. So basically, let me put that here on my desktop, and then you can see that here is the data. Unzipped is like almost 50 megabytes, and whenever you have a CSV file like that, you can open that on Excel. But one actually of my research projects is called Navio, that allows you to visualize that type of data very easily. So if we go to navio.dev, and then you click in here, which takes you to the observable notebook, you can open those type of data sets. So I can come in here, and then I can open this one. And it's very nice because it allows me to see that we have like almost 250,000 records. And I have all of these nice attributes, like for instance, if it is a casual or member of the system, latitude, longitudes, in case you are into maps. I don't kind of like them that much. But also like station IDs and things like that. And you can also, for instance, click on one of the attributes to sort and like do filters, but this is not a Navio demo, so let's kind of stop there. But in a way, basically what we want is, let's go and create a simple application that allows me to see these records on a SQLite database and to try to display them on a basic and edit them and create new records or something in a basic HTML application. So in order to do that, we are going to be using Express. You can find all of the information about this basic framework. It's a minimalistic framework for Node, which is the JavaScript version that can run in the backend. Although nowadays everyone is speaking about Bun, which is a kind of like a new replacement, but we are not going to be covering that in this demo. So for the moment, let's stick with this, and then when you come here in the Getting Started guide, you can find that there is a nice tool called npx Express Generator. So we are going to be using that. So what I'm going to do here, so I kind of did a lot of things in there. So let me open my terminal, and then basically in there I'm going to go into my desktop, and then I'm going to run npx Express Generator, and I'm going to create a new project called Node, Express, what else did I put on the other one? SQLite, EJS, and then let's call it bike share let's see if that works. Oops. So actually, let me cancel that and delete that one because I want to pass like different parameters. As you can see here, we can pass different views. And if you also want to use a CSS engine, in this case, I want to use the EJS template engine for some specific reasons that I might tell you a little bit later. So I want this to have -v and then EJS. I think, oh, actually, you can just do -e according to this one. So let's see if that goes. And then after doing that, basically what Express Generator is doing is that it's creating a template that we can start building upon. So we can go and get into that one, and I'm going to open Visual Studio Code on that one. Let me close this one so we don't get confused. And then here is the basic structure that you're going to find. Sadly, this is generating code kind of in an old version of JavaScript. So I'm going to be replacing all the LEDs, all the bars for LEDs, at least so it doesn't look that ugly. And then what you're going to see in here is that we have like 3 different elements that we are going to be seeing all across the project. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to create here a basic README, and then bike share, Node, Express, Sqlite, EJS demo. And then let's say this is a simple demonstration of a full stack server side rendered app. So this is very important. This is going to be a server side rendered app. And the 3 elements that I mentioned that we are going to have, we are going to have a front end, and then a back end, and finally a database. Okay, so so actually, I think we can even call this inside this. We are going to have like a part that is going to be doing some routing, and we are going to have like a DB connector in here. So basically the front end, since we are going to be doing server-side render app, it's actually going to be generated completely from the backend. Okay, so but we are going to be finding that on the views folder that you can find in here. Then for the backend, we are going to be finding that in the routes folder. The DB connector, we are going to put it into DB, although we don't have it right now. And this one is going to be like handled directly with Sqlite. Apart from this, like it's very important that we understand that for this we are going to be using HTML and EJS, and maybe a little bit of JavaScript, like with ECMAScript 6, which ES6 it's pretty much like JavaScript, but with the latest versions, starting from 2015, I think, and onwards. For the backend, we are going to be using Node plus Express. And for the database, I already mentioned this one, and I think we have this one. And also, we are going to be using Bootstrap in here, okay? So that's a lot of information. Hopefully I can go back to this to try to help digest this. So one of the things that we want to do with this is that this boilerplate code comes with some extra routes in here or by the way, like let's actually go and say what happens if we want to run this thing. So let's say usage in here. So basically what we want people to be doing is to, oops, too many triple things. So we want people to be doing an npm install and then an npm start, okay? So if you just come in here and you do the 2 things, basically npm install is going to be installing all of the dependencies, which are actually handled here in this package JSON file. So the default is going to be installing all of this. Good, I think that looks good. And then when you do npm start, it is going to be running this script from the package JSON. That in this case is just starting the application. And when you do that, so if you go into this bin www file, you're going to see, oops, too big, that is going to be trying to start a server on the port 3000. Basically all of that, for simplicity, means that you can then go into the browser, and every time you send a request to, as long as this server is running, you send a request in here, it's going to be handled by that, and it's going to be generating a page. And then we can start making changes to that, like for instance in here, let's say for instance that we put footer, and then in here we say div made by John with I don't know, like a lot of effort, so and my skin is not yellow, so there you go, and then you can see it's modified. Okay, so as I was saying, let's start deleting the things that we don't need. So let's start here in the app.js. So basically, if you go and see, as I was saying, from the package JSON, that calls the www file, and if you see on the www file, that one imports the app file. So I'm actually going to replace all of these as well, so it doesn't look as ugly. You shouldn't be using bars directly for a lot of reasons that I don't have time to cover in here. And then the other thing I want to do, yes, so actually before I get started with the cleaning, I'm going to install like a couple other packages that I like using. In this case, I'm going to use for development ESLint config prettier, and prettier. Hopefully we can put that in here, such that this is a part, like if you're using something like Visual Studio Code, it's quite probable that you already have those things running here. But this allows me to do Command-Shift-P in here. That's a Visual Studio Code thing. And then I can just say format this document if you have the prettier app. And then, for instance, just to be replacing these elements in here. The other thing I'm going to do, and I know I'm going a little bit fast, but the advantage of the video is that you can go back and review stuff in here. So the other thing you can do is that you can just say, I already forgot this one, but let's think it's like this. So I can create an ESLint configuration only for this project. So let's go and say that I want to do this one. Yes, I want to run that. So basically this is going to create a configuration file for me. So I want to be checking syntax, finding problem, and enforcing style. I'm going to be using, yeah, maybe. So yeah, I'm going to be using require exports probably because this is a Node app. It's not going to be React. I'm not going to be using TypeScript. I'm going to be using browser and Node. I'm going to answer questions, JavaScript. I want spaces instead of tabs, double quotes, Unix. I do use semicolons, and that's it. Beautiful. And then that creates a configuration file. That is the one that I'm using in here, as you can see. And then it also helps me with generating all of these things. Still generating like a lot of errors in here, but I think I'm not. Oh, yes. Okay, so this one is complaining because it found 4 spaces, but not 2. I used to do this on Sublime, so let me try formatting this document. And by the way, my idea today is that you see me failing here, so you can see that it's completely normal when you're developing to fail. So you just need to try to recover and to keep on going. So there is another trick that I used to do in Sublime. Let me try it in here. So let me convert these to tabs, and then I'm going to close the file, and then I'm going to open it again, and then I'm going to convert it to spaces. Will that work? Oh, yes, yes, yes. I think I have another idea. In the ESLint file, I want to be using 2 spaces instead of 4, and then that's where doing this conversion works. So let me do this again, and then convert to spaces, and there we go, perfect, and beautiful. And then I'm still getting an error in here. Actually, this one, I don't want to get frustrated for seeing that all the time, so let me show you. I have that in, yes, open that. We can get rid of that one with, I think, this one. So I think it's this one. That seems about right. Oops. And then of course I missed. So there we go. Beautiful. So we have that, and then we don't have those errors anymore. Okay, so all of that is just for configuration. You can try to, I actually have a video where I explain how to configure Sublime with all of the different elements, which is, I will, if I remind it, I will put also in the comments or in the description. In any case, yes, so we had that, as I was saying, let's go and do some cleaning. So here, basically, I want to get rid of those red things. I'm running prettier. You can get that on Mac Visual Studio Code with Option Shift F. And notice how it changed all of the quotes for double quotes, which is the standard that I define. And I'm going to get rid of this users file or users routes. I'm going to delete it as well in here. And because I deleted that, I can delete this file as well. So let me move that as well. In the public, I think I don't need anything else. Yes, so let's get started with that. Okay, good, perfect. So, and then finally in here, I think this looks good. Welcome to Express. Oh yeah, so okay, so here comes the first element. So I'm actually going to replace this. And basically what you can see in here is the way that EJS works. The whole idea is that if you have, basically it's kind of like a modification of HTML in which you can insert elements. So in this case, this one is inserting a title variable. So if we go and then open the routes index.js, remember this is kind of the back end and this is going to be the front end. So in my back end, I have the routes folder. So in this case, it's going to be like the index.js. And then in the views, I have the index EJS, okay? So as I was saying, so if I take, this is my front and then this is my back. Let me try to make that a little bit smaller. As you can see in here, I have basically what it's called a route that says every time I get the general request, we are going to be rendering the index template, which is this index EJS. And then you can pass this parameter that is saying that this is the title, okay? So in this case, we can go and say this is San Francisco bike share rides, whatever. So if I go and I change that, and if I just refresh this, of course it's not running because I stopped the server, then I can just go and do npm start again and restart this, then you can see that result in here, okay? So let's get started with that. So since we have already the CSV file, I think an interesting thing will be to maybe start this from the back, so all the way from the database. So we are going to create in here a new folder, and I'm going to call it DB. And in there, I'm going to say, how should we call it? Like a DB manager, maybe, or be a good name for that. Connector. And then we are going to create one for SQLite. Okay, so the other thing I want to do is just to import my CSV file to SQLite. So I think an easy way of doing that will be using DB browser. Oh, let me take a little break in here. Okay, I'm back. So with the magic of the streaming or the videos, whatever, I just realized I didn't have the DB browser installed, which is the tool I like the most for importing CSV files into SQLite, which is what we wanted. So this is the tool we are going to be using for that, DB browser. So I just went and downloaded that for my Mac. I have an M2 processor, so that's why I use the Apple Silicon. And then basically what you want to be doing is after you install DB browser, you want to create a new database, and then we want to go and find our project. And I'm going to put it here in the database folder, and I'm going to call this bikeshire.db. So, or actually, we should call that SQLite tree, or DB also works. So the way SQLite works is that it's database that different from Postgres or MySQL is not really running on its own server. You just access that directly from your application, which simplifies things a lot. And you just need to specify what is going to be the actual file that is going to contain your data. And we can put that in here and even include it into our repository such that we can make sure that people can access the whole thing. So I just created the database, which is going to create the file. You can find it here as well. I'm going to console this because I don't want to create the table manually. That's the reason why I like DB browser. So instead, I'm going to file, import, and a table from CSV. And I'm going to use the CSV file that I used before. Very important to tell it that the first line is going to contain the column names, and we are going to use UTF-8 encoding. Everything looks good in here, so I'm just going to OK that, and then that basically creates a table, identifies all of the column, and that's definitely going to simplify our stuff. Finally, it is very important when using DB browser that you write the changes. So I just click on that such that it knows that like it kind of sends that to the data. Otherwise, it's just working a transaction, whatever. So in any case, now we have that. And if you go and take a look at your file in here, like this is now like a 42 megabytes file, which is consistent with what we had. Okay, so here is where it starts getting really interesting. So I shouldn't have closed the DB browser. So let me actually open. Does it have? Yes, it does. So we can go and have this one. Perfect. So the next thing is that when you're running data, or when you're using SQL, basically the way you access the data from the database, it's using a query language. In this case, we are going to be using the standard query language, I think it, or simply, I don't remember what the S stands for, but we are going to be using SQL for that. So the whole idea in here is that you use a format that is very similar to this. In this case, by the way, what name did it give to it? Oh, I should change the table name. So let's call it like trip data. And then I want to save that. And then here, I want to just select all of the rows from my trip data. And then I want to execute that. Let me see if I can change that quickly, because that's looking too small. See if I can make that a little bit bigger. so we can read that more clearly. That's kind of it. Font size maybe here. That's not the one I wanted. So data browser. This is the results. SQL editor. So actually, this one I want it to be a little bit smaller. There we go. So yeah, that's a little bit better. Not the best font, but in any case. So we will be doing something like this. Now, however, we don't want all of those elements for the moment. So let's go and say that we get like the right ID maybe, and we want the start station name, and let's say we also want the end station name, and probably, oh, this is looking really ugly. Let's start with that. And then, yeah, definitely to change this one. So basically, this is going to be the query that we can start using for getting our data. Now, in order to access Sqlite from a JavaScript application, which is what we want to be doing using Sqlite module for JavaScript. So if you search for that, then you're going to find this package. Then you can see that in order to install it, you need to run this. So let's go and run that in our project. I'm going to stop the server. Then I'm going to do this and then save it. The -- save basically is going to put it in here as one of the dependencies. So now we have that as one of the dependencies. And then here in the, well, actually this one could be useful as well. So either in the documentation or in here, you can see like a basic example on how to run it, okay? So that's what we're going to use as a starting code for this. Let me actually put it like this, and then let's take a look at what this has in here. This is all the API documentation, so this explains how to run all the elements. So good. So yes, so this is going to contain everything that we want, especially this method in here. It's the one that we actually want to be doing. Yes, I think. As you can see, basically what this thing is doing is that first it's importing the Sqlite 3 module, then it's connecting to a database in memory. We are going to want to change that. As you can see, we can change the file name, values are blah blah blah, so hopefully will be, if I recall correctly, then it should be something like /db.bikeshare.sqlite. I hope that's the name that I gave it, bikeshare SQLite 3. And then the thing we want to be running, in this case, is going to be exactly this query that we built in here, and then we can just put that in here. And as I was saying, so actually, let me yes. So we probably will need to do a little bit of this later, but for the moment, let's just go and say that I'm just going to be doing a DVO. The way I know it is DVO is because, as I was saying, you can find that here in the documentation. They were before using db each, which is going to be iterating through all of the results, but I want to see like all of the elements. And by the way, one of the things that is going to happen with this is that if I do that, that is going to load like all of the 48 megabytes. So instead of doing that, we can change a parameter in here that is going to say that I'm only going to get the last 20 elements, okay? And since we are going to be doing that, we probably want to be ordering by something. I think we So let me go and run this. Oops. Do we? No, it should be order by. And then syntax errors at line 1. So I wonder what the problem is. So of course, as you can see me failing. So this one definitely it's working. I wonder if I can get rid of the order by. Let me try that. And then of course, as typical, let's say SQLite probably. SQLite order by. And then hopefully this one could be useful. So yes, it actually seems like I wonder if it is just because it should be first the order by and then the limit. I think that could be it. And let's put descending. I'm assuming that this is sortable, and then run it like that, and then still nothing. Oh, sorry, this one. There you go. There we go. Perfect. And then I can go and do this one. Awesome. So this is the thing. So as you can see, whenever you're failing, like you can just go and check for the specific syntax for that. You can always find elements like this, and or just start looking for the specific error that you're getting. This one's definitely telling me that the problem was in the order by. It seems that the problem was that it needed to first do the order by before the limit, which kind of makes sense. We can talk more about that later. In any case, this is the query we want to be running. Since I wrote that in multiple lines, I'm going to put that into the back quotes. I guess that's how those are called. And then I'm just going to be doing DVO, okay? Which again, as I said, is basically what this one is doing here. We can do this with a callback. I wonder if I can also run that with promise. We'll see. So let me try doing that like that. So basically, one of the things that happens with JavaScript is that it's asynchronous. So basically, you have two ways of running this thing. Either one is with a callback, or the other one probably will be with a promise. I don't recall exactly here if I can run this with a promise. I think we do. So let me actually check how was I doing that in here so I can be consistent. Oh, I was calling that mine. Yes, definitely. We do have the connect method and away. Perfect. So yes, let's go and do it that way. So in this case, we can do just something like this. And by the way, let's actually get rid of this thing. So in that case, let me simplify things like this. And then basically what I'm going to do is just to write a function here that is going to be like get stations, so not get Copilot didn't guess it right. Trip data, good, perfect. And then I want this thing to be returning the whole thing. And here is the trick. So whenever you want to do something like that, basically you want to do something like trip data equals, and then, but since this is an asynchronous function, you either provide a callback as you see in here, or oh yeah, there we go. So this is optional. I wonder if they say here callback. Good, perfect. It's not really clearly specified in there, but it seems like you can also call it with as a promise. And basically what this thing does is that it's going to wait for this thing to finish. And as you can see, ESLint is complaining, saying like, hey, if you want to use a wait, make sure that that function that you're calling, it's asynchronous. I know it's a lot of different elements, but we're going to be repeating this over and over and over. here, so probably it's going to make sense. And as you all saw from this example that I was making in here, basically you can just cheat and use this connect that we have in here, which is going to come from this one probably. Oh, and I think, yes, I think that's going to get me into a little bit of trouble. Oh yeah, probably that is the key in here. That's why the other one doesn't mention that. So let me see. So basically Sqlite. So come on, Node. There we go. Yes, so this client from Sqlite, which is a different package, adds easy ES6 promises support, and that's the one that I want to be using. So in that one, let's actually, so in order to use that one, let's go and do --save, and then Sqlite. And remember, by doing that, what that's doing is that it's putting here into my package JSON the dependencies. So now I have Sqlite and Sqlite 3. The Sqlite 3 is the official package, and Sqlite is the one that adds promises support. You can find how to install it, basically what we did before. And then you want to be doing something like this. Good, perfect. So in that case, beautiful. So I can do something like this, which is exactly what I was doing here. So I'm just creating this function connect that in this case is going to be doing the bike share.sqlite3. I'm going to be using the Sqlite 3 connector, and then I also need to import Sqlite, or actually, sorry, open from require Sqlite. Basically, this way of importing, what I'm doing is that this is going to return an object, and then I'm going to look for an attribute open inside that object, which is pretty much the only thing I need in there. That's what it's going to be using. And this is complaining because I am not using that connect yet. So basically, I can just do that. Copilot did it right in there. And then I have the trip data, and then I can do this. And that seems about right. And then I can just return the trip data. Hopefully it will be something like that. So just to test this without, this one will not work because it's asynchronous. So for the moment, let me just put a console log in here that says cat data, and then trip data dot length or something like that. So it's not that long. And then the only thing I'm going to do here is just call get trip data. Okay. What do you mean? No, that's weird. Oh yes, because it's spell checking. So if I want to check if this is running, I should be able just to run node db and then db connector Sqlite, and then as you can see, you got any data, and then we're done. You get it? So basically, we just query this SQL using node and return the values for that. So I think we can do that in here. Let me put that like that, so it looks a little bit better. It seems like prettier, I guess, because it's multi-line. String is not complaining. If you want to see the actual records, then you can just do it as well. And then you can see that is returning like all of the elements by right ID. Okay. Now, so the next step, so as I was saying, so basically here we are going to have our DB connector, right? Connector. This is going to be on this side, which is the one that it's connecting to the Sqlite. And then basically what I want to do is that when I get a request, which is actually going to come from here, So every time I get a call for my application, which I think it's in here, basically that is going to get handled by the routes index, which is going to be calling the DB connector. Once it has the data, it comes back to here, and then using the views is going to show it on the screen. So let's go and try to see that working. So for the moment, instead of being calling this directly, what I'm going to do is module.exports, and then I'm going to put in there basically the get trip data. I think it's how you do that in old Node. I'm going to keep it like that. Such, oh, and yes, this one I don't need. Thank you is linked. And then what I'm going to do is that in my routes, I am going to be importing, let's get rid of these bars, change it for let's. I'm going to be getting, there we go, Copilot was smart enough in there. So, total word wrap, there we go. Let's try to make this a little bit smaller. Or the thing we can do is just do this. I'm not really using this much. So in any case, now that I have that, definitely I prefer doing it with JavaScript. This one definitely has that. Now that I have that, basically this is a method that it's getting called every time I do this. Okay, so in this case it's failing because the server is not running. So I can go and do an npm start in here. And then when I run that, it comes in here. Now, and this is going to fail, but if I go and say index called, so if I go and I do that, and I show here my terminal, and I refresh, you can see that it's not working. And the reason why that's not working is that every time you modify the backend, you need to restart the backend server. So I'm going to stop this and run it again, then refreshing here, and then now you can see that this happened. If all of that is very confusing, we can get rid of that problem by installing another application or another package called, I'm going to save that as a development package, that it's called Nodemon. So what Nodemon does is that if I go and I just do Nodemon in here, and then of course it doesn't work, I can do, the reason why it's not working specifically in there is because I don't have it installed globally, hopefully, Nodemon. So when I run it like that, it is going to be starting whatever you have in your start package and then refresh it. Now, since I don't want people to have Nodemon installed globally, that's why I say that it's going to be a dependency for this package. And then what I'm going to do is that in my package JSON here, I'm going to do a trick that is going to look a little bit confusing. But basically what I'm going to say is that I'm going to run, if you check here in the Node modules, that is the locally installed packages. And if you go into the Nodemon folder, there is this Nodemon JavaScript file, which is actually the one that is being called. So what I can do is that I can say from the Node modules in the Nodemon folder into the binaries, I'm going to run this thing, and the whole idea is that now when I run npm start, I can get this started. So let me try that. So now this is starting that, and the beauty of that is that if I go and I do like any modification like that, if I come in here and then I just refresh the browser, doing that with Command-Shift-R in the browser, you can see that now we can see the changes. I know it's a lot of information, but once again, just get used to that, and then I'm going to give you this boilerplate so you can use that without having to go reinstall all of that. In any case, the key here is that what I want to be doing is that I want to be calling, oh, there we go. So Copilot learned, read my mind. So I want to get the trip data. I want to get it like that and then save it on this file. But this get trip data, remember it's an asynchronous function. So if I go here into the DB connector, if you say here the get trip data is an asynchronous function. So what that means is that if I want this to work in a synchronous way, I need to put an await on that. And if I want to use an await, I want to take the parent function and convert that into an asynchronous function. Now that I have that, then I can save that in here. And then I can just go and say called, and then I can go and say here is my trip data.length or something, and this is just for debugging, and Copilot learned it right in there. So, and then basically the key in here is that now after I have done that, I can go and say I'm going to pass the trip data from my backend to my frontend here with the render method. Remember that whatever you put here as a parameter. So basically on JavaScript, you can just go and say, come on, close it, something like this. But if you're doing that, then it's basically just, it's the same as just putting it like this, okay? So the cool thing now is that if I go and I do that, and if I refresh in here, I don't, why are you showing so much? Oh yeah, remember, that reminded me that I am printing that in here, in the console log. Good, perfect. So let's go and say here, DB connector cat data, and then I can go and say trip data.length because it's too much information. And then if I refresh here, then the DB connector got the data, and then I can see here in the route, let's go and call it here like route called, and then I can show the trip data, and then I have that, and then I'm passing that to the front. So once again, so everything's handled like kind of like my router. That's why it's called router. Is the one that receives the request from the browser. It receives the request, then it calls the connector, the database connector, which goes to SQL, and then SQL returns, Sqlite returns the data to here, which returns it to here, and then from here I want to go to the front end, which is going to generate the HTML that is going to go for the browser, back to the browser. Okay, so going back again, let me close these modules, that is too much in there. So if I come in here, the key in here is that basically I'm going to have this, like a variable like this. And then in EJS, the beauty is that, I wonder if this will work, you can do things like this. Let's go and search for that. Probably it's this one. If you see, let's say get started, examples, blah, blah, blah. Here's how you do includes, custom delimiters, custom loaded, layouts, client support, caveats. So probably here in the documentation, usage includes like something like this. This is the one that I'm looking for control flow, no output. Should we go and do it like this? Yeah, I think this looks nice. So let's go and do this one. So basically what this is doing, and then I'm going to do that with trip data in here. Basically what I'm going to say, it's trip data dot show, and then basically what this is doing, I should change the names for that. So let me change all of that. So whoa, probably I want to call that a plural thing. So let's go all the way to the database. So what I'm going to do is that here I'm going to modify the table, and I'm going to call it trips. Okay. and you're going to see in a second why. So I'm going to save that. So here, basically, this is going to be trips, and hopefully that works. So that's good. That's the one that I'm going to copy here. I'm going to change, actually, let's call this get trips, and then I'm going to change this for trips. And I missed this one. Okay, so since I changed that in here, I need here in my routes, I need to get the trips, and then let me get rid of this that we are not using. I'm going to this one as well, and then here I'm going to pass all of the trips, and now in the front I'm going to replace this with the trips, and then each one of these is going to be a trip, and which could be included in here. But let me simplify this for the moment. So basically, oh, that's nice. Kind of. So basically, it's not really that the format. What we are going to be getting, it's something more like the ride ID, start station name. So let's go and say it's more like a start station name. So Copilot didn't get it completely right. So we have the start station name, the end station name, and the ride ID, which is basically the things that we are getting in here. So I can go and say in here the ride ID, and then in this one we want to have the end station name, something like this. Okay, so basically what this is going to do is that whenever in EJS you have something like this is a tag that is going to be replaced by the value of this variable, in this case the ride ID. Does that make sense? So we can go here into our application, and now we dance. You see? So now we have, it is rendering like what it's the, although it seems to be a problem in there, but in case, this is the ride ID, and then this should be like the start and ending ride. And then we can keep on making these a little bit better, like for instance, for each one of those, we can just include here an divider like this, so we can have the elements. So it seems that some of the elements don't have a start station name and an end station name. Can that be the case? So that's for that. And by the way, where is here the documentation? Let me go and see. This should have a better one. Let's say get started. Yeah. The documentations, options, locals. These are the includes. Command line. Don't they have more? GitHub wiki page, various examples of using Liquid Express. So probably this could be a little bit better. So that's for that. Not really. I wonder if they have a better one. In any case, for the moment, let's go with that. And then let's see. Oh yes, so this actually has some different values in here, which are null, so that kind of makes sense. So I guess those are rides that are starting and ending from empty places. So I guess we can also add some other attributes we want to put in there. So let's go and say that we want started at, ended, and then ended at, and see this one. Good. So we have a couple dates in there, which could be a little bit complicated, but for the moment, let's go with that. Started at, And then we are going to say ended at. Okay, so basically we can just go, oops, this one in here, and then if I refresh, oh, I saved that one, I didn't get that in here, so let me copy again that and put it in here, and then now I can see these values. Now, if I want to make this a little bit better, I can replace it probably with something a little bit more meaningful. Like, for instance, let's go and say that we are going to put a label. You know, I'm going to say for what. Let's go and say it like this is going to be the right ID. Come on, you can do it. Well, actually, I can just put it like this, and then I'm going to put an output tag. Come on, interesting. Will you let me complete that, please? Output. Oh, damn it. I wonder why. There we go. So basically, this is where I want to be putting the right ID. Okay, and then I want to replicate this one. Let me see if it's working. There we go. So started at, and then started at. There you go. And like if you want this to be like nice and clean as we had it before, so oops, sorry, let me wrap this with an abbreviation. Let's go put that into a div, and then do that again with a div, and now you can see that. Okay, so with that, at least we now have completed the trip. To recap, what we did in there is that every time I call this in the browser, basically what that's doing is that it's going into my routes file in the backend. It's going into my routes file, which it's calling the DB connector, which calls Sqlite, does the query, returns it to DB connector, that returns it to the routing, and then goes to the front end that generates the HTML, and it's then sending that HTML to the front end, as you can see in here. Okay, so from the code, as I was saying, like you get into the routes, it gets exec starts, the trip starts in here because I'm just querying this slash, as you're seeing in here. Like when you don't query anything, you're just basically querying slash, and then what I do is that I call get trips, that it's part of my DB connector, and then I'm printing this in the console, which you will get here in the console. So basically you can see here that it's calling this one, and then, well, actually you get first the DB connector because I'm calling this method. So let's go to that. So I'm calling this get trips that is exported from this, which takes me to the DB connector file, which is this get trips, okay, which connects to Sqlite, as I was saying, runs the query, and once it has the query, it returns the trips in an asynchronous function. Okay, that brings me back here, which prints that in the console, and then this goes in and tries to render that with the index template. The index template, you can find it here in the views, is this index template. Oops. So let me keep it open so we don't get confused. So let me open a third one. So in here, let me go and open the index EJS. So the index template, so as I was saying, like the render method will pass that to the index. And the way it is passing the information is by this attribute. So we are passing two variables right now, the title and the trips, okay? And basically you can see the title is used here for the header, and then the trips it's using here. And basically then we are using EJS, that is a template system that will replace all of these, and it will start generating a cycle that it's saying for every trips, since that is an array, for every trips, call these JavaScript functions. I'm going to call this JavaScript function with a new trip, and that trip I want to show the right ID and the started at, okay, for the moment. So what I want you to do now is try to replicate this. Let me put that into GitHub, and then I want you to try to show the other attributes that we have in the table, okay? Good, so let's go and put that quickly on GitHub. So just for reference, I'm going to create a new repository. I'm going to call it pretty much the same thing I use in here. So let me copy and paste that so I don't do that. Good, perfect. Example node plus express plus Sqlite 3 plus EJS. What else I'm using in there? I'm going to be using Bootstrap in a minute. Yeah, I'm going to add a git ignore, so please do that for Node. I already had a readme, so I don't need that. I'm going to release this with the MIT license, so people can reuse this, and I'm going to create a repository. So once I have done that, I'm going to take the repository. I'm going to go into my console, stop this. I'm going to say that I'm going to initialize this with Git. I'm going to take my remote, and I'm going to add Git remote origin, which is going to be the main remote for this. And I'm going to give it that URL. Then I'm going to check that it worked. So git remote -v. So it shows me all of the current remotes, and then I can just do git pull origin. So I didn't specify the branch, so I'm going to take the main branch, which is the one that is created by default. So that gets me the git ignore you see here, and the license, and all of those elements. Then I'm going to include all of the attributes or all the files that I have in here. I think this is going to be ignoring the node modules, which is exactly what I want, so that's good. And then I'm going to check the git status. I'm also going to be adding the ESLint file. And I'm going to be committing initial commit, and then send that in here. Oh yes, I have to put this in the default element or default branch and remote, and then I just can do git push, and that should put it in there. Now you should have it in here with the basic application. So the cool thing about this is that anyone can just go and clone this. So if you want to use this, just come in here, copy that, as I did, go, and for instance, I'm going to go into a temporary folder, and then I'm going to clone this thing, and then that is going to download it. Then once I have cloned that, I can get into the folder, do npm install, which is going to install all of the npm dependencies that we had. I should fix those vulnerabilities. Let me do that in a second, and then just do npm start. And remember, when you're doing this, the way you test that, it's in localhost 3000, and that gives us our first version, and that's what we have for the moment. Let me stop here.